My hat! So here I have my VTA car. So I'm going to be talking about just mistakes to avoid, and it's easy to make these mistakes, especially if you are not paying attention, newbie, not paying attention, mainly not paying attention. So on this car, I was focusing on everything: weight, where to put the weight. If you have seen some other videos, I have the little brass plates that I worked on, where I added some other weights, things like that on this car. So I took it out, and I was testing, and I kept fiddling with the suspension because it wasn't steering. To me, it seems like the car was understeering. And I couldn't figure it out. I mean, I was missing with the toe in on both front, rear. I was messing with the height, a variety of things, belt tension, and I just could not get this car to steer. And during the practice, well, actually, it was qualifying runs, I was doing horribly. I was getting lapped. It was bad. It was really bad. But then when I started racing, before the actual race, which is too bad that it happened just before the actual race, I noticed what the problem was. I finally found the problem, and I found it by accident, but I'm going to show you what I was doing. So if you look at down here, that's the belt. And then you can see the belt crank runs really close to it. So what I did is I was playing with the steering just to make sure the steering wasn't hitting the belt, because I started thinking, all right, maybe the steering is hitting the belt, and that's what's throwing off the steering. So I tried it out, and that's where I found the problem. Now let me disconnect the fan here just for less noise. But this is where I found the problem. Now, this is not the shorty pack. I do not run a shorty pack in this car. Just using it because it's charged. But now I ended up changing something. So let me just go into a different setting. I'm going to go into a car that has a different setting. All right, perfect. So let's just do that. And I started messing with it, and then I started turning the wheel. So one of the things, it would help if I turn the car on. One of the things that I was checking for as I was turning was making sure that the belt crank did not hit the belt. And I'm actually good. Very little clearance, but I'm good there. But as I was turning, and I'm not sure if some of you can tell, probably not because of the light. Oh, there we go. You might be able to tell there. See that? Let me do this one. Maybe you can tell. Let's see if I add a little more light. All right. Right there. Right there. What happened is the following. When I was checking the servo and I was placing the horn here, I talked about the position. So if you always want an aluminum horn, and I showed you the plastic one that I broke. But the plastic one that I broke during practice, which I was doing fine in practice. It was once I swapped to this aluminum one that things just started not working. But I thought it was the track conditions. Track conditions had changed, maybe the different tires, new tires. Maybe that's what it was. So I was trying to just mess with everything. I mean, I even tried doing a few little burnouts to put some heat in the tires. But what ended up happening, now the car's off, is when I installed this and I made that video, I manually moved the servo one side or the other, and it seemed to clear. But because it was with the other one, I had already done the endpoint adjustments on the steering, which you always want to do. I forgot to check it again with the new servo because it's not the same, the new horn, because it's not the same length horn, it's a different distance. So whenever you change the distance here from the center of the servo, from here to the new center, you have to check the distance. And the problem was that even with the trim all the way to 120%, this was still not steering fully the way it should. So that was my problem. That's why I could not get steering. So I ended up messing with almost everything, sway bar, everything. And then finally I got it to a point where it started doing all right. So I just left it there, but I was bummed. I figured, well, I'll just wait until I get home, then I'll have more time to fiddle with it. And then as I'm standing there just waiting to go up to the driver's stand, I just started messing around with this, checking. That was the last thing that ever crossed my mind to check, and that's where I discovered that problem. Well, anyway, I pushed the trim all the way up to 120, and I did a lot better. Still not the best. And what I mean by still not the best, I mean I was the guy after second to last. So if you're the guy that's comes in after second to last, you figure out what position I came in. But at least I had a much better driving experience. So now I have to actually set the endpoints. So for that, let me just go ahead and show you how to set it up, just in case you ever build one or you end up having a similar problem, what to do. So here we go. Again, I don't want you to get discouraged from buying a higher end model like this. There are more adjustments. I mean, that's generally what makes these cars better. It's not really that they're just a better car because they are carbon fiber or whatever it is. They simply have more adjustments. They have more tunability. That's the reason why. So you can adjust them a little more to the driving conditions depending on your track. That's what makes them a better car. But because they do have more tunability, it's more things that you have to check and be aware of. So still, again, do not be discouraged from buying one of these cars. Little by little, you live, you learn. But now I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and I'm actually going to go one up. Now normally you want to put a little more thread lock. I have to do some other things to the car, so I'm not going to do it right now, but this is where you would apply, just dab a little thread lock compound. Blue, make sure you use the blue, not the red. Do not use the red. The red you really only use for screws you don't want to remove. But there it is. So at this point, I'm going to mount it. Now, I could have gone all the way to the end, but again, that's not the point. You want to make your adjustments in small increments so that you can see how they're working. If you go too far to the other extreme, something may not work, and you may think the car is busted when in reality it was just bad adjustment. But here we go. The other thing too is when you're making these adjustments, power off the vehicle if you don't need the vehicle to be powered on. And the reason why is since I am dealing with the servo, you're just going to put stress on the servo because the servo will try to go to whatever the neutral position you set is. And that's the reason why. So there's no need to add stress to the servo. Now here, just for now, I'm only going to install 2 of the screws. There's no point in installing the third one. With these 2, the car will be aligned. And I'm not going to tighten them all the way. I'm just going to snug them up. Almost tight. Here we go. So at this point, again, now we know the following. Don't use your hand because it'll be fine. So now at this point, this is where you need to power your vehicle on. And do all of the adjustments all over again. So I have to go into the correct one. let's see. I use this transmitter for multiple vehicles. That's the reason why. All right, so now I'm in my Yokomo. And I'm just going to the correct setting. All right, perfect. So let's see, one more. So I'm left. So here you can somewhat see, lights get in the way. Maybe if I produce shadow, no shadow. Well, let's bring it up. So right's 100, left's 100. This is where this moves. So that's what happens. So just for fun, oops, I'm gonna bring this down. I'm at 45% right, so now watch what's gonna happen. I'm gonna go left and right. See how little it turns right? All right, so that's how I'm setting my endpoints. So that means if I were to run the car like this, I would turn somewhat right, left. I would barely turn right. So I wouldn't be making any of those right turns. So that's the other thing too. If your car seems to steer fine one direction but not the other, it could be your trim or something could be binding in here that's not allowing the car to turn one direction. And there is a video that I showed on my buggy because that was an issue that I was having on my EB410.2. But, all right, let's bring this up. So I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to bring it up until I see that it hits. Well, let's see. So I'm going right. So this is the one that I'm going to be looking at. And I'm going to see when this comes in contact here or barely. You can also listen to the servo. So see, there isn't a whining sound. Whereas, all right, I don't like doing this, but well, usually, oh, this one doesn't actually whine. Some servos will make an electronic noise, and that's how you can tell they're being stressed. So here goes. Something you can do is just steer right all the way, and let me zoom in. That will probably help. There we go. Let me see if I can focus it a little better. All right. So again, we're looking at this gap right here. That's the gap we're looking into closing. So now I'm just going to increase. And you can see this is moving. I actually have to get in a different angle so I can see. And let's see. So I'm already at 120, and 120 is the max, and it appears that 120 is where it should be. I'm actually going to go to the top screw because this should not be maxed out. So on my transmitter, I'm maxed out at 120. I'm going to go up one screw. So I'm going to bring it back, just dial it back. Well, you know what? I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to leave it there on purpose. But if you see left is at 100. Actually, left isn't too bad. Left just needs a little more. But here. Let me just lift the car up so I can actually see without putting my head under the camera. Yeah, that's good. All right, good. So now at this point, we need to go to the car again, and I'm going to leave it like this. So I'm going to leave the trim onto the transmitter as it is. Let me actually move this to the top position. And just by looking at this, this is where you're going to have to make a choice. One, get a different horn. Unfortunately, this was the only horn that was available that I could get after breaking that plastic one. The shop where I was did not have the actual Yokomo aluminum horn, so I could not get one, or one that was the same length. I forgot the length. I believe they're 18.5 millimeters, but to be honest, I cannot remember. But that's the one thing you want to look at, what size horn you're getting. You don't want something that's too small, too short, or too high, too low. But let's try the next one. So now I'm going to try the high one. So anytime you replace the horn again, run through the whole calibration. If it's not the same size, and you know what? Even if it's the same size horn, just run through it again. Maybe it wasn't calibrated correctly the first time, or something happened. Just check. Always double check. That way you have a better racing experience, unlike what I had, which was still fun, especially after I discovered that problem. Man. Because then I was racing, but I knew, I sort of knew what it was. So once I knew what the issue was, I could compensate doing other things, such as, doing a hard brake. Well, one, the trim on the radio. The other thing, doing a hard brake and just trying to whip the rear end of the car. Right, you start adjusting your driving. Versus expecting something and not getting that result. At least now you know what to expect. So that helped. I think that helped me, because now I knew what to expect. Yeah, when you don't know the problem, you're trying to find adjustments. And something so simple, I mean, this is such a simple problem. It can just ruin an entire run. It can ruin an entire day if you don't figure it out. Right. Here's the other thing too, see? Just check. All right, here we go. So now, the first thing I want to do now, it's in the very top hole, so I want to make sure it doesn't hit the brace. Now, previously, the previous hole, it worked, right? I just had to be at 120 right, and it worked. But I don't want it maxed out. See, this isn't going to work, so this is hitting. So then that means I'm going to have to move it down one, because it didn't hit, max the right side out, which is fine. And here, let me move out. I'm going to see how much I have left to right on the trim. Maybe I can shift the horn a little. I'll do that later. So right now at this point, since it hits the brace, I want to keep the brace on. I'm just going to move it down to one hole. Half this at its max. The left was not on its max, so it'll be fine. But this is how you're going to be running the adjustments. So at this point, I'm going to leave the battery plugged in. But I'm going to go ahead and remove the servo again. Place it one hole below. And then once that the correct servo horn arrives, because I can always use this on something else, I'm going to pick that up once it's no longer on back order and available. As of now, I can't get it immediately. That's the problem. And it wasn't, I mean, they had the plastic one, but I wasn't going to use the plastic one. I was just going to end up breaking it, and that's even worse. Then the car's broke in the middle of the track, and then I can't run. I'd rather have a slow run and get out of people's way than have no run. Let's see. All right. So this is going to be the one that I'm going to be using for now. And servo horns for me, it's something that I don't have much luck with getting the correct ones, because the ones that I need are always back ordered. Similar to the EB horn that I needed. Man, that was such a pain to get, because it's a very specific horn that you need. Here we go. So this time, now that I've checked all of them, I know I can go ahead and just install all 3 screws. I'm going to go ahead and place that one. It's the center one that I'm actually going to tighten the entire way. But I want the outer ones just to line it up there. And here we go. So if you're new to the hobby, getting into it, these are things to check on your RC regardless of which model. But whenever you make replacement, you upgrade or repair, just double check everything. Make sure you fit, run power to the vehicle. Check those little details, because that, again, can really ruin your experience. And you could develop the mentality or an idea that the vehicle that you are running is not a very good vehicle compared to something else, when in reality, it's not the vehicle, it's the setup. It's not set up properly. Not necessarily set up wrong, but it's not set up properly. But here it is. So again, I'm going to go ahead and check. Both of them are pretty much maxed out. So that's 119. This is one. Actually, this might be 119 as well. Let me see if I can go down to 17. What happens? I can go down. Go up. 17. I think 17 is the way to go. Then over here, if I drop it twice on the left. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually going down on the numbers, and I'm seeing where it doesn't push on this. So it's lined up, it maybe touches, but it's not pushing. So I'm trying not to stress this. Let's see, so I'm going down to 13. 13, I believe, has a gap now. Let me just go to 114. 113 is the way to go. So I'm going to have to run like this until I get another horn. But again, just to sum up, the purpose of the video is if you ever replace a horn and it's not the identical length, and even if it is, just double check your endpoints. Do not assume that the endpoints are going to be the same, because your steering may look good when you're running it, but in reality, see what difference that makes just going from here to there. And that affects your turning radius drastically. So that being said, I hope this is helpful for many of you. Do not get rid of your nice cars and sell them because you think it's a bad chassis or not a very good chassis, or your particular model is defective. Chances are there's probably a little setting that you might be overlooking that could potentially be an easy fix. So other than that, thank you for watching, and I hope more of you just get in a sport and start racing, VTA or in general, just start racing. Have some fun. Thanks for watching.